Do not waste your best years at a good paying job. Let me say that one more time. Do not waste your best years working a good paying job. Now, you may be asking, you know, what does that really mean? Could you explain more? Some more context. Let's do that. So, working a job for 20, 30, 40 years, that's a good and also bad thing at the same time. Working a job for 20, 30, 40 years, a good paying job for that long, it's both good and bad. Let's speak about the good. Why working that long, that many decades, working at a organization is good. Job security. Having that one job for that long is pretty good. It means stability, stable income, basically. You're able to fund your lifestyle from that one paying job, which is, again, stable. You're not bouncing from job to job. You probably have been promoted to a higher position or not. So that's a good reason to be at a job for that long. Stability, right? And now here's the bad part about working a job for that long, a good paying job. In 2026, the very people who've been working a job for that long, for decades, are the very people being laid off in today's world. The very people who've been working for that long, 20, 30, 40 years at the same employer, are the very individuals who are being laid off in today's world. I'm sure you're aware of the mass layoffs in every industry: retail, transportation, logistics, excuse me, of course, gig work, tech, government jobs, everywhere. Another reason why it's bad to work a job for that long is once you get laid off after giving decades to an employer, after you're laid off, you have to basically start all over again, depending on how long you've been there and depending on your age. Some people are in their 50s who are being laid off after decades of work. That's terrible. You have to start all over again to hopefully look for something that pays the same pay rate or salary. And obviously, or realistically, you may find something, but it's going to pay a little lower. And you have to basically climb the ladder again to get to that pay rate or salary. Now, a lot of people don't have decades to give to an employer. They already gave 20, 30, 40 years to one place. People don't really have that drive, or it's terrible to have to start all over again. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine. Not to mention, because you've been working a job for that long 20, 30, 40 years, and then you've been laid off. So much has changed. The world has changed drastically in terms of how to get a job nowadays. See, 20, 30, 40 years, getting a job was very different compared to today, obviously. But I do recall a time in the early 2000s, we're talking 2003, 2004, getting a job was easier. Walking into an establishment, requesting a job application was the norm. Once you fill out the application, there's a very big chance that you're able to speak with someone that same day, and it'll be either a yes or a no that you got the job. It was just that easy. Request a form, fill it out, speak with someone, and that's when you'll find out either yay or nay if you got the job. There was no rounds of interviews. There was no LinkedIn or Indeed profile. There wasn't a need to throw your resume on the internet. Hopefully a recruiter would call you back. You could walk into an office, a staffing agency office, same thing. Request a form, sign it, fill it out, and speak the same day. Some people who are being laid off are realizing how hard it is to find a job in terms of just the procedures, the rounds of interviews, the wait time, the LinkedIn profile. Some people are not that tech savvy to even understand how to create these profiles. Again, some of these folks are in their 50s and 60s being laid off after decades. It's terrible. But that's the bad side of working a job for this long. You kind of just start to lose, unless you've been keeping, you've been just paying attention to what's going on. But some people just don't, because they don't have to worry about getting a job because they have one. So why stress about getting a job or how to get a job when I already have one? So now they're finding out how hard it is to find a job, a new job. Not to mention the amount of competition you have to deal with from all the mass layoffs. Millions have been laid off since C-19, 2020. Millions have been laid off. These are your competitors. That's another reason why working for this long could be a problem. Now, again, I think working a job is a great thing. I'm not anti-work. I'm not anti 9 to 5. The best part about working for a company for years is the stable income. You're receiving pay weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, however you got it set up. That's wonderful. The benefits, another reason why having a job is great. Dental, healthcare, vision, pension, 401k plan, stocks, bonds. I get it. That's amazing. A job is taking care of you and your family. That's awesome. But giving your years, your best years, to a job could be bad, depending on what you're doing. Meaning, if you have been working for this long for an employer, decades, and you've never decided to start other operations on the side, whether that's a second job, a business, side hustles, whatever. The fact that you've been this comfortable for this long and never thought, hey, if this job goes away, then what? What can I do on the side that can help me, you know, pay my bills or do what I got to do while I'm looking for another job? Because once that one job goes away, then what? Especially if your whole life or your livelihood is being funded by that one stream of income. Like to me, that's just putting all your eggs in one basket, and that's just so risky, right? But some people have been doing that, and that's a very common thing where people have their one job thinking it'll never go away, and now we're here in 2026, mass layoffs. I've met people that worked a job, the same job, since the 80s and 1990s. I've met people who had a job for that long, the same job. They all been laid off. It's terrible. I'm actually glad I've never stayed at a job for that long, meaning the max I've ever worked at a job was about 5 years. The max. That's been the longest time I've worked at a job, right? And here's the crazy part. When I was much younger, I used to think something was wrong with me, meaning I used to think that maybe I'm just being irresponsible for not working a job for decades like most people did, right? I used to think that's what I had to do because that's a responsible thing to do, like most people. And I've never held a job for that long. And again, I used to think something was wrong with me because that's what I've been doing for all my life. I've been bouncing around jobs all my life. I've never had any interest in working a job for that long. I've never wanted to be somewhere for decades. And guess what? I'm glad I'm like that. I'm glad I'm like that in terms of not giving so many years to one employer, my best years also. I'm glad I never did it. The reason why I'm glad is because I'm a type of person where I like trying new things. I like learning new things. I like being around new people. I love meeting new people. I love new environments, new job tasks, new job duties. Um, to me, that's fun. Though it's fun doing those things. I'm not just I'm just speaking for myself. I enjoy seeing new places. Being at an employer for that long, I start to lose interest. Some people are able to work the same job duties, same job description for decades. I can't do that. I need to always learn new things. It's fun. I never wanted to get that comfortable just doing one thing like a robot. I was just never that person, and I'm glad I'm like this. I'm glad I'm not like everybody else. Just that one job for decades and that's it. Because, like I said, the very people who are being laid off right now are the ones that have been working for decades at a job. Since I was younger, I never had interest in working the same job for decades. That sounded like a nightmare to me. It sounds like torture. I I've never had interest of working somewhere the same place for decades. That sounds like hell. Even though it's stable income, I still want to try new things. Go to new places, new job sites, use new technologies, new equipments. Why not? It's fun. For me, it is. And like I said, I'm glad I'm like this today because throughout my years of working, even though I've always had a job, right? I've always had a job. At the same time, at the same time I'm working a 9 to 5 job, I've always built other things, other streams of income while I'm working my 9 to 5 job. I never wanted to depend on a job to fund my livelihood, right? Because in the back of my brain, I will say this to myself all the time. What if this job goes away? At some point, it will go away. Whether I get terminated, if I quit, laid off, maybe the company was acquired, which is very common. I worked at places and they were acquired, and we had to leave the job. The point is, I've always built other streams of income. And now this is back in early 2000s. I never depended on one job like most people did. Most people gave their life to a job, their best years. I've always been against that. I much rather give my best years in building my own thing. That makes more sense to me. And that's what I've been doing all my life. Today I live a very comfortable life here in South Florida because of my mindset, basically. Right? Right now I work in IT and I have different streams of income. I have a small business. I create content on the internet. I get paid for it. I sell a course. Um, I live very comfortably. And if I ever lose my IT job, nothing goes to crap in terms of my lifestyle, my livelihood. Everything's fine. Everything's great. And I think it's because of how I think, of not ever depending on one job or just one stream of income, or not giving my life, my best years to one place. To me, that is dangerous. Again, I'm not anti work, I'm not anti 9 to 5. For me, working one job, one source of income to me is very dangerous, super risky. At some point, it will go away. It will go away. And now you're basically screwed. You give your life to a job, decades, and then out of nowhere, you're being laid off. That has to suck. I've never felt that before. And I'm glad I never have to experience that ever, like some people today. People are desperately looking for work in this economy. The cost of living has gone up insanely. I'm not here to give anyone any advice or tips or tricks or hacks, but I'll say this to you. In closing, if I were you, okay, I don't care how old you are, but if I were you, from now on, moving forward, I would start building other streams of income while working your 9 to 5 job. Easier said than done, obviously, but to me, that's the mindset to have moving forward. That is exactly what I'll be doing if I were you. Again, it's not easy to do it. Building other things while working 9 to 5 is tiring. You need a lot of patience. It may be costly, but it's possible. And it's also available. But that's something I'll be doing if I were you. That's the mindset I would have every single day. is what else can I build that I can control, right? And no one can take it away from me in terms of a job just can't lay you off because they feel like it. You have other things going on that you've built and you control it. That is to me the nothing beats that feeling, man. When I'm in bed sleeping, I'm still earning income. Nothing beats that. Nothing beats having multiple streams of income. So that's, I guess, my tip or advice to you. From now on, the mindset that you should have is what else can I build that can generate revenue while working 9 to 5? That's something you have to figure out. And I hope you find out what it is immediately. Thanks for watching.